Okay. Uh, Not sure what happened there. I think my internet was acting up. Hang on. Sorry. So sorry. My internet was acting up, strangely enough. Okay, let me see if I. Hold on, let me reconnect everyone. I gotta keep an eye on this thing because for some reason, I guess I mapped the keys incorrectly. No, wait. Yes, that old. Thing again. Whatever, it's fine. Uh, so I have OBS. I have to keep an eye on this thing because apparently it decides to shut off on you for no reason whatsoever. I don't know what's happening with that. I don't know why it's doing the thing. So I have to keep this thing right by my side, just to make sure it doesn't turn off this entire time. Um, Before we begin, actually, I'm going to just play around with the settings here, and I'm going to get that link yet again for just to refresh chat. Da, da, da. Here we are. New chat, pop out. Okay, good, good, very good. 1 second. Why is it acting like this? That, then. Uh, hmm, let's see if I can get this. Okay, then go there. I'm not sure why it's not letting me do that. Okay, grab the new leak. There it goes. Okay, that fixes that. Okay. Da, 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 da. All right, so make sure this thing stays on red. Streaming 1080p. Good, very good. Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blood Moon Ritual Showcase. Today, I'll be showcasing my book, my project. Well, technically not to be published or anything. Nothing serious. It's just a project for NaNoWriMo. But before I get into anything, let me explain what is NaNoWriMo for the complete normies out there. What is NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo is essentially a month-long challenge in which a writer is given a task to write an entire novel within a month, which is the entirety of November. And also too, the minimum words for that is 50,000 50,000 words altogether. So basically, that is the minimum for a given book of sorts. Say like probably for kids books or young adults, definitely for young adults and whatnot. Um, so may have questions. As how much does 50,000 words equate to in pages? How many words does that equate to in pages? Well, that is just simply shy of 100 to 200 pages if it's double spaced. It'll definitely be 200 pages if it's double spaced because uh, double space is just usually the go-to type of setting for these things. And why is my thing glitching out here? So that's also counting. Just to make sure that it's just at uh, the 12 font, 12-inch, one inch margin, um, which takes up about 300 words per paper. So with a small font size, which is 12, and then the font type, depending on whichever it is, maximum is probably going to hit is 300 pages or 300 words per page, and then it stretches out to I want to say 120 to 200 pages. That's heavily depending on you have this little setting on, which I do. Okay, so why bother? Why even go through this heartache of having to write something like 1,700 words per day just to meet the goal of having 50,000 words? Well, I put it simply, uh, number one, people would say it's fun. It's fun to be challenging, but also too, I think it's more on the line of getting it done. You know, first drafts are always going to be a slog, an absolute slog. Let me get the chat out here. Okay, an absolute slog, and usually, usually it's just it's it's a heartache. It's nonsensical, but it's kind of like you're doing something that you're passionate about. You're doing something that's fun and that could get you in a lot of places because writing is a very unique type of skill. It's a very demanding type of skill for people who want to uh, make a career out of this. I highly suggest that whenever you get around to it, make something for NaNoWriMo. Now, it's largely vague, and in which you don't have to do a complete another draft for that project that you're already doing year in and year out. You can make up something else. You can do a continuation, or you can make an alternate scenario in which what I'm doing with my characters. Um, you could do literally you could write whatever you want. You're not writing this for this isn't to be published or anything. You're writing it for the sake of the challenge and to see what you're capable of once you put your mind to it, which is a beautiful thing. Of course, it's a absolutely beautiful thing. Really have to keep an eye on this thing because this. Okay, we're going. Okay. Da, da, da. Okay, good. Now, where to begin? I guess I'm gonna start with an introduction of myself. I am a intermediate writer. I do have a project in the works, uh, which has a lot of similarities here. This is a branching off point from the lore. But I do have a publication in the works. It's looking like a very long project. There's a lot that goes into it, and I'm looking for a very late 2023 release. If not, then early 2024. It's a probably like 800 pager book, which is a very demanding book. It will be self published and whatnot. I'm also a photographer, a beginner screenwriter, and a very tough, a very tough critic, movie critic, game critic, and book critic as well. Some of my favorite works, of course, you probably can tell, is some Lovecraftian, um, a lot of Norse mythology. Oh, I study that religiously, and then a bit a bit of some fantasy stuff. A lot of fantasy. There's a lot of fantasy stuff that I read on and off. I'm currently going through the Book of Three, which is the Pride and Chronicles Book One. I believe that's what it's called. If not, this might be something else. I butchered that. Sorry, sorry. I just picked up the book, and because it's been sitting on my shelf for quite a while, and I bought it. I think I bought it in like June or something outrageous like that. It was absolutely absurd the time when I bought it, but I finally able to get into it. uh, I'll probably be able to finish it by sometime tomorrow or the next day. It's a very short book. But in any case, so today what I'm going to be doing is going over my thinking process and then my entire outlining process. Even though it's just clearly for NaNoWriMo, this is not a finalized thing. This I went over this like a couple of times and whatnot, and I did go back into the file and edit things out, so that it wouldn't be too much of a spoiler for you guys. Um, I don't know if I'm going to put this out as a PDF file for Discord, or I don't know. If the people may ask, at the end of the challenge, at the end of November, I might, I just you just have to ask for it. But this isn't a serious thing or anything. Uh, and as you can see here, this cover picture, I basically just borrowed the couple of images from Adobe Stock, and in which, if you guys don't use Adobe Stock for your, if you guys looking to get into YouTube and you want to use some type of stock footage for commentaries or just to help you out with designs and whatnot, I highly recommend getting into Adobe Stock. They have some cheap stuff over there, some really expensive stuff like 4K textures. It's really worth the money. And Shutterstock as well. I should be promoting Shutterstock because I technically work for them, technically. But in any case, Blood Moon Ritual Showcase. Welcome, all one and all. My name is Javon Farmer, courtesy of Adobe Stock and Google Search Images, and this is only for the purpose of NaNoWriMo. So over here is the first page is essentially a very rough summary. You have the title, you have the genre, you have the logline summary, and then you have the comparison uh, stuff over here. Usually just two things. I chose one type of game, The Other Side, which is on PS4 at the moment. I think it's on Xbox as well, probably. It's a very stylized game. It's a turn-based game, and it's in the same almost color palette as this picture here, but everything's in black and white, and everything else that's like resembles blood or some type of character's skin is red. The only color shown in the entire game is blood, which is red, which is absolutely phenomenal. I love that type of aesthetic. So I chose that here for Blood Moon Ritual as it would help out with my type of lore, which what I'm going for. And then Shadow over Innsmouth, which is I really don't need doesn't need an introduction. Uh, it's just essentially another Lovecraftian story about a guy who goes into a town called Innsmouth, and there's certain strange things uh, he encounters and notices about the town folk, and uh, some strange beings or entities or whatever you may call them live in the ocean right next to the town, and they're doing something with the townsfolk. Huh. I can just give you a very, very vague summary for that. And again, jumping up to here, logline. This is essentially the entire story in one sentence. And usually for these, I like to have the finalized version within 15 or 20 words. If you really need the extension of 20 words, I guess you can go for it. But for here, this was just like first draft logic in a sense. First draft logic in which you're not really going to nail the one liner. You're not going to nail it completely on the head, as long as you just get three things down. You explain the main character, who is with an adjective of sorts, and then you explain their adjective. You might want to add in a bit of irony to it, but most of all, you have to explain what we are going to be seeing, or in this case, reading, uh, throughout the entire thing. And oh, I'd have to say, log lines for movies, largely for movies, are much simpler to do than it is for a book. I mean, simply because you have to put like 500 pages, 700 pages, or in my case, 800 pages of entire story in one bloody sentence. One bloody sentence. That's really inducing. But it just comes down to the core aspect. I mean, what is the core emotional uh, thing? What is the core emotional themes and stories that you're trying to tell within in this project? What are you really trying to hammer home? And so with that out of the way, summary. There's I really don't focus too much on summary here. I just have four run-on sentences, not completely edited sentences, but it's basically just giving you the entire gist. That you're allowed to go ahead and have like four just sentences. It shouldn't be rather too long, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. I think that's cutting it for 6 lines, but it gets right to the point. The Red Wave Queen, uh, Red Wave Queen commences starts her training of a student into the blood rune magic, and they discover the spread of a fungi infestation that turns people into very vicious type of creatures and whatnot. We'll see that type of designs later on. That is foretold. The blood moon holds universal knowledge. So as they journey on, uh, they had to find the blood moon as a way, and it gives them knowledge on how to defeat. Well, I assume that it will give them knowledge on how to defeat these fungi But the Blood Moon may have some ideas of its own, and it's more of a sentient being than anything else. It turned out the Blood Moon has shrunk, and hasn't been seen since in generations. Um, as the fungi infestation grows, new unsightly forces reveals their true intentions for the land of the fallen god. And then down here, that's the comparison. Okay, moving on. Here is the lore. The lore, the lovely, lovely lore of why is this thing so okay, there. The lovely lore of the Blood Moon ritual. Now again, this is not 100% everything that I thought of, everything I jotted down, but but am I missing some comments here? Okay, no. But it does give you a gauge on how the Norse mythology part plays into the story. In a sense. Gonna hit this arrows. Okay, that's much better. So, once the Alfred, which is the elves in English, settled into their realm, they experimented day and night with their magic. They're actually one of the first ones to successfully get a good grasp on their magic, their ancestral magic and whatnot. They handcrafted a whole bunch of spells, ranging from mindless amusing tricks to telepathy and even levitation as well. As the years went on, their magic became increasingly useful for architecture. This is single-handedly, aside from Asgard, the most advanced type of civilization in all of the nine realms. Basically, what was impossible for a man in Midgard became very, very possible with the Alpha. Okay, they built temples, they built towering mountain ranges, or rather, they built towering chapels and cathedrals and whatnot, towering these huge, wide open areas that they have, and mountain ranges and valleys, and the structures even reach for the clouds, and they're very, very sound. They're very, very good in design as well. Odin blessed them with very, very clever, even more clever designs, as well as more of a. He was more impressed with what they did, and he wanted to give a little bit more of a push into architecture and whatnot. Most advanced realm out of the nine realms, completely. So much that Freya was also impressed with the engineering, spent many moons wandering around the streets aimlessly uh, at the Grand Elf cityscape, which is like, think of like almost Final Fantasy Midgard, but it glows endlessly, and it's spread out for miles and miles and miles of dense streets, and then you have floating architecture that goes up in the morning and then it goes down to kind of like the sun, and then you have floating chapels right above the cityscape, and it's breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. Okay, the first red wraith. So Loki, of course, Loki being Loki, was obsessed with the elves' magic more than anyone else, more than any other species, and he conjured up a mischievous idea, and he wanted to see the true potential of an elf, just not on their good side. One night he visited a lone elf and laid with her. He fibbed about many tales of him and his brother, and fighting battles that he never fought or was anywhere near to begin with. He was pretty much telling all sorts of lies just to sweep her off her feet and impress her and actually wanting to get into a relationship with him, which he didn't want. He just wanted to see about their dark side. The biggest lie he told was him looking for a true shield maiden as a wife. Now, the elf begged the lady, her name Azora, begged him to teach her the ways of the Asgardian, uh, how they fight, their mannerisms, their literature, their lore, basically everything about their culture, because it's totally adjacent to the Asgarder, which is right above their own realm, and yeah, totally different cultures here, totally different customs, totally different traditions, but they all admire each other, which is pretty interesting. Uh, and the way that these realms are set out, it's basically Asgarder top, uh, the Alpha on underneath second, and then Midgard all the way at the bottom, all the way at the bottom, basically. So one night, uh, while Azora and Loki were trading with each other, Loki got upset simply because he couldn't learn the elf's magic. He couldn't learn a single thing. He couldn't cast a single spell correctly. He would stutter with the pronunciations and whatnot because it was a completely different tongue. Much like how Midgard uses English mostly, some Icelandic, probably Norwegian. Uh, their tongue is completely obsolete when it comes to elves. And it's same thing for elves with their spells and incantations. Completely obsolete when it comes to um, the Asgardian language. They have no bearings with each other, pretty much. There's no similarities. There isn't even a hint. There's no vowels. There's no adverbs or adjectives that they use that remotely sound the same or even what feel the same when pronouncing it. Completely different. So, in a fit of rage, he struck Azora, and the whole commotion summoned nearby guards into the room. Azora watched her blood gush from a deep cut wound in the chest. And the world turned cold and dark all around her. She was completely paralyzed. When she's noticed, when she noticed, is that her body was starting to crystallize. What happened was Loki had actually struck her with a Jotun's frost dagger, which is basically a death sentence. And there's no way of reversing it because it's once it hits any type of flesh, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter who, what, or why. Once its blade uh, sears the flesh, that's it. It's going to be crystallized and more of an ice statue in just minutes, mere minutes. At the same moment, Azora was the first elf ever to see Alpha blood. It was a it was a thick, dark purple liquid at the time. It pulled all around her and started to actually melt the ice. It kept this warm temperature. She was awestruck by the composition of her own blood, but its chemistry, its structure, how it felt in her hands, all around her fingers and her palms as well. And she grew so fascinated by it that she salivated and she knelt down further and further, lowering her wounded chest and tasted it. Disgusted by her actions, the guards turned to her and demanded that she stopped, because this was never done before. This was never a thing. No elf in history had ever been wounded, been attacked by anyone else. They have only known peace until Loki. Until Loki decided to appear. Let's see. Is there anyone else? Nope. Okay. So, uh, at the same moment, uh, she gave a toothy grin and completely licked up all her blood. Now, in terms of uh, alpha body anatomy, they have this type of magic system going on throughout their bodies that allows them to intake and analysis all types of chemical bonds and chemistry that's going on within the what they intake, like food, drink, and whatnot. They can immediately spot the ingredients of whatever they drink or eat right on the spot. It's another gift from it's another gift of their blood, their lineage, their ancestors. They are very, very analytical when it comes to making perfect food and culinary and whatnot. It's more of a culinary thing than it is, uh, well, cannibalism, technically. uh, it's just that they're able to quickly spot out what's in this drink, what's make it special, and why it's so good. Like wine or or juice or anything like that. Milk. They drink a lot of milk too as well. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Her body is analyzing the the properties of her own blood and is getting so used to it that she now has the ability to manipulate it, essentially. The guards turned on her and told her to stop. Uh, she felt very satisfied with her toothy grin. She drinks up all her blood, uh, and then she lunges after a guard and sank her teeth into his neck. Her body was conforming quickly to the new ability. Before the four other guards who were around, could react, a swift dagger from her robe was tossed and slices through their throats. Dead. Dead. Completely dead. Loki, in complete shock and horror, watched the guards fall. He listened to the cycling and licking and gulping sounds of that Azor was feeding. Now, a sworn foe. After Freya had caught Loki and Azor, they were brought to the court of Odin. Appalled by Loki, he was thrown into hell for a century. And Asgardian in Asgardian ways, a century counts as 1,000 years uh, relative to Midgard time. Midgard time is runs far slower than Asgard's. Basically, Azora was cast out from all 9 realms and forever left adrift into the vast emptiness of space until she found the dead body of a giant And this giant, once he crawled up, was the size of a planet. There she swore to devour the body of Loki and then help Fenrir kill Odin in Ragnarok, Twilight of the Gods. Now, this is the first account of the origins of blood magic, essentially. Uh, Many other texts mention the same events and have different variations of during the how it started, why it started, different type of context, subtext, stuff like that. That was all lost during the Great Freeze and the final battles of Ragnarok. Those sacred temples of ancient knowledge were completely destroyed, lost forever. So basically, my entire mythos, my all the things that I wrote out, everything that's been planned out so far, even true for Nox and Rita, takes place fresh out of Ragnarok, which is we're in completely new territory here, completely new territory. Certain things carry over, people go in and out. There's a lot of references to the ancient times, now known as the ancient times of the gods, basically. Um, so anyway, the Red Wraiths started out as the first Nordic vampires. Azora mated with various other elves who were thrown out in their history. Um, Leading up to Ragnarok, she became queen and dubbed her home the planet land of the fallen god, which is essentially their home. Her traditions and principles were passed down, but were within time they were ultimately disbanded as the race evolved over the centuries. After Ragnarok, the entire world was destroyed by the World Eater. The world trees collapsed, pushed the fragments of the fallen god into unknown regions of space, where it's just scattered remains of what was connected to different realms. So basically, all the realms were shattered and fragmented as the tree fell and as the world serpent went crazy, absolutely crazy, trying to kill Thor. Uh, so afterwards, the only realms that remain is really Midgard. Recognizable in a way, yeah, sure, but it's the only one that's uh, held up together relatively well, but it's in a new region, in an unknown, unexplored uh, sector of space, if you will. And that's not good because as the unknown stars, uncharted stars align in such a way, new threats emerge from deepest depths of the unknown space, of unknown regions. And it's really more of the Dark Ages, except this one likely to stretch on forever and ever and ever. Ah, Red Wraiths evolved into warriors of the Blood Moon. Currently, there are no complete origins of the Blood Moon. It exists as a demigod. Uh, True guidance in the way of the Red Wraiths. So now, on to the first account of the appearances of the Blood Moon. And this is where we dive into really, really dark territory. Boiling blood. After Azora's fall, Red Wraiths were at each other's throats, their faith lost, guidance crushed, and goodwill ran thin, until a new figure birthed from the land below. In front of thousands of Red Wraiths, they were all collected together, and they were all warring against each other, not spilling blood yet, but they were getting there. They were getting there. And then they witnessed the literal birth of the first male red wraith. The first the first male red wraith birthed from the ground. And he turned out very, very promising, actually. He was wise, he was patient, he was steadfast. His words were chosen very carefully. He essentially made everyone get along. Yet again, everyone on the same page. And to that extent, he made an empire. And he built an entire army. He made cathedrals. He made ritual grounds and whatnot. He was actually the one who suggested tunnels to have an entire tunnel system as the first trade routes, so that goods could reach other villages. Other villages could live off the land and be in health and whatnot. He was very, very economical in a sense. But something was not right about him. Now, the Blood Moon reached out and selected a handful of very doubtful red waifs. And so they went down, they grouped together, and entered the deepest catacombs of the land. And they were the ones to discover the Blood Moon. It was in his weakened form, of course, it beckoned, pleaded to them that the male red wraith, Vict, was not what he seemed. So it turns out that he wasn't completely a gift from the dead god. He was a lost elf in the emptiness of space. He was absorbed into the fallen god. And as the body took shape of a planet, the flesh meshed into his psyche and turned him into an abomination. His true intent is dominance over all. So akin to alpha nature, they may have all this advanced stuff. They may have the best magic. They also have the strongest and most worrying type of flaw than any other species. They are very, very, very easy to manipulate and corrupt internally, not just with words or arguments and debates and whatnot. Basically, when it comes to magic, their blood allows for anything. Anything. Their flesh allows for anything. It has while their mind may have like a filter or like a system that says, "Hey, this doesn't seem right." It's like in like a form of consciousness or something. The flesh doesn't have that type of luxury. Therefore, very easy to prey towards unknown diseases, unknown type of growth, uh, dark, very dark magic, even worse than blood rune magic. And since they're in unknown regions of space that have never been uncharted, this gives them way to very, very bad possibilities. Okay, so uh, trust me, we're almost done here. So basically, what follows is the absolute worst place in Red Wraith history. They went out from the catacombs and they spoke their minds. They spread the word about the true intentions of Vict. The Blood Moon guided them, luring out Vict himself, but upon that, he was not very pleased in the way that they portrayed him. And so he massacred three-fourths of the entire species of red race. Three-fourths. The cry of a rebellion ceased there. He was the most powerful red wraith in history. And as a punishment of a rebellion, every wraith was subject to hard labor. No, they're not allowed to practice red rune magic anymore, and they were tortured for any type of slight mistake, like some was burning food in the kitchen for guests, or even so much as breaking, uh, having eggs fall off the table and break into the floor. He was very, very authoritative, and he was very tyrannical in the most mischievous way possible. This went on for decades until a group of daring red wraiths ventured out into the catacombs yet again to find the Blood Moon, which had been rumored to disappeared. Oh, it was around, but decided to go away because Vic's unwilling power and whatnot. It was still down there, waiting patiently. Uh, Now, why it's decided to wait down there for so long while all this nonsense was going up is completely unknown. Their true intentions of the Blood Moon are almost never clear. And again, we don't have those texts that even remotely comes close to uh, identifying his true intent, his true identity. Even it's just a thing. It's just a floating ball of flesh, red hot flesh that oozes and and pours out and gushes blood, unending blood, forever and ever, all around its aura, and it speaks telepathically. But as it does so, it stretches, it convulges, it throbs and whatnot. Just like as if something was inside of it. Something that probably are inside of it. But in any case, the Blood Moon was ready to attack this time. And so, the Blood Moon ballooned up with more followers and more faith and more rituals. It blew up more and more and more and more. And then it rose itself above Vic's castle, and it caused a storm of fire, bones, and boiling blood. The blood lashed itself onto the bones. It hardened and created flesh. These beings took Vic and they collected him and lifted him up all the way to the Blood Moon, and he was swallowed whole, thus putting the end to the Blood War. A very, very, very terrible era indeed. So now, we have the lore done. That took some time. Wow. Now we have locations, which is one of the most important. This is a pretty much a Souls-like story, Souls-like tale, uh, and that would, of course, come with no shortage of locations. Locations. You have to know where your story is being told, how long you're going to spend there, and you need to basically hit the road as soon as possible, having really diverse type of terrain, really diverse type of uh, peoples and culture, like what's happening around with the world with when this story is happening. In this type particular story, everything around it changes as it progresses. That's sort of like the idea of sort of like what happens in Bloodborne, technically, in which you progress through the game naturally. You beat certain bosses, and almost the entire game changes as you continue on, and that involves a lot of intrigue and a lot of interest and oh my goodness, the sky is red. Why is the sky red? Why is the moon bloodied? Why is there fleshy tendrils coming from the moon? It's simply because as you defeat those bosses are important enough to the lore that it changes your entire world view, technically. And for this, I'm technically applying the same logic here. So our first location is the Fleshing Forest, which is an entire forest made out of fleshy growth. It's more akin to exposed flesh, exposed skin, uh, but it's an entire growing ecosystem in the middle of the entire map, basically. So an L, imagine like an L of sorts. Um, we're more so The story more so takes place right in the middle of the land, all the way up north, and right dead center in the middle is a vast, vast amount of growth of flesh trees, flesh bushes. The grass is made out of flesh and tendrils and whatnot. And this is basically common ground for the red wraiths. This is where they grow their feast, their food, and whatnot. And this is where they praise the moon. Um, and have a ceremonial feast as well. So it's technically their homeland in a way. Now, the second location, uh, Temple of Insight. So going back to the Tree of Life, after it was utterly destroyed, it was big enough to scatter its remains all across the universe, right? And while Ragnarok completely destroyed like eight eight and nines of eight out of nine realms that were created, all those realms are gone. Technically, it's possible to find remnants of the Tree of Life, and one seems to have landed in the land of the fallen god, basically. And this entire temple was built all around it. And this is the place of where they meditate and they seek knowledge and seek prayers of the Tree of Life. Well, as large piece, as remnants, as bark. It's a large bark that's just like lodged into the ground. And while it hasn't spoken or it hasn't evoked anyone in a long time, it's just a place of more like desperation because they're still lost. It's like having a modern day religion where there's no God. It's like there's no not even a demigod, and you're searching for something to respond. If this is the closest best thing that you have, imagine that, in which it's just you commune, meditate, and invoke tree bark, and waiting for its response. Now, the central trade route. This is a rather fun type of location. It lies between the Flushing Forest and the Frozen Lands, which is going up north. It's a collection of small villages, carnivals, vendors, tradesmen, uh, who gather up together, and they they they're more like practitioners and performers of entertainment. Basically, who says you can't have fun and a dark in a dark environment. Who says you still can't have fun with that? Um, Red waves, well, surviving ones, come from far around places just to network, basically, just to come together and have fun, host some shows with some horses and whatnot, do some magic stuff. It's a really fun type of route, and it lasts is basically just an along the trail, and the is a main route going up from the Flushing Forest, as I said, up to the north, and they have villages on its side. You even have chapels and whatnot. The carnivals are a little bit off the ways, but there's still like a trail. Think of like the Silk Road trade, but more so inland. And of course, the Vada Carnival is fun stuff. Now, Vic's Castle. Now, this is a straight up uh, um, gothic, straight up Lovecraftian type of description here. Oh, excuse me. In which basically Vic built his own castle with the labor of slaving red waifs, and he performed a lot of very bad stuff over here as well. Tortured, he tortured people. He enslaved people. He made others commit very vile types of tortures and whatnot on other people just to get information and whatnot, and even times for the fun of it. Uh, this is simply a landmark and a reminder of those times. Even though that they've long gone, um, this is essentially PTSD in its most physical form, in a sense. Okay. So, excuse me. So basically, the castle cannot be found on a straight road. It'll be found whenever it wants to be found, because it was enchanted to have a mind of its own, which is courtesy of Vic. Going ahead down. Now, this is the last location, Vic's Dungeon and Tomb. So, basically, this is underneath the castle, and this is where this is the entire network and all the places in which tortures were being done and executions and whatnot against red waves. All the prisoners were taken away here, and uh, it was not a very pretty sight, to be honest with you. Time seemed to have frozen here. It's not completely confirmed. Again, if there would be more of a description here, if those texts were around, but they were destroyed and gone away along with the once the rebellion was successful. Basically, this entire place was either burned or people set torches and caused some type of illusionary spell here, because the dungeons and tomb seem to be very illusionary in itself. I'm just going to put it that way. Um, and even the blood room magic that red waves use would not help with properly mapping out the place, because it seems that its tunnels stretches out much longer. Its interior stretches out much longer than its exterior would have you believe. It seems much smaller outside than it is inside. And There's a lot of things that's going on. I can't wait to get into this, but I can't because of time. So we're just gonna go ahead and move on. So in any case, primary characters. And this is, of course, one of the most important things to flesh out because you'll be spending like 300, 400, 500 pages with these characters, and you can't just like only for the first draft get the basic idea for them down and have them written in a sense that at least makes sense in a way and could carry the story through. You're hitting a wall, a brick wall. So basically, what I just did is the basics here is just the name, ethnicity, Icelandic, elf, and then age unknown. Her role is basically she's the queen of the red race, but it's not a complete monarchy because well, as I said, the red race live on a collapsed culture in which they don't have a fully developed identity completely. Not at least completely. Um, but in any case, they do have some type of structure or awareness of who is royalty and who is not. And Raukin is royalty. Her family lineage completely unknown, basically. But she has a student, and she lives with this student, and they converse over the blood rune magic. And she also uh, uh, knows her place as just a queen, and she doesn't want to take up any position that's over the blood moon itself. So, uh, Ashlyn. Ashlyn is another red wraith. She's actually the pupil for Rauken. She's 200 years old, Icelandic. Uh, the only people under Rauken, intermediate fighter and blood rune magic practitioner, takes the opportunity as self discovery. That and interesting here too. She's the only red wraith to have seen another world. So basically, she's the only one to have seen fragments of Midgard, assumably Midgard or maybe something else. And she also has another gift because the way how the cosmos work is that it does have its own magic. It has the universal type of magic in which it can take energy from a soul and it's more like a give and exchange and whatnot. A give and exchange in which it gives it's still uh more so in service of offering soul energy, right? And existence, because that's what Odin blessed the universe to do, is to offer soul energy so that he could create people. Um, and in that, it is possible to tap into that energy in a way, to tap into it. But it's very difficult. And it's a road, again, completely, it's roadmap, it's practices, it's one of the, we're talking about like one of the rarest magic books in existence. Probably gone forever. Probably gone forever. Because either Ragnarok destroyed them or the Blood War destroyed them with various texts that were gone, burned, or disappeared with Vic, or devoured with Vic as well. Uh, so that's where that's at. No one else have access to these books. Nobody else. Um, ta-da. So Ashlyn's basically the only Red Wave who has Red Wave magic and Astro Universal magic. which gives way to very, very powerful sorceries and illusions. Okay, Freya, one of our last characters. Freya is Asgardian. She's the only goddess really around, surviving goddess really around. She is now take the role of Queen of the Bravehearted, Angel of Light and Dark. She is the last surviving goddess of Ragnarok. She resides in the land of the fallen god. More of a refugee, but she's also a mentor. And of course, queen as well, and inspires the young ones, the Redgrave younglings. She has ditched her duties, her traditions of Asgard, and in favor for the Alpha of Blood and mystic arts. So she still have power of mystical arts that she had before Ragnarok. However, those have completely weakened over time. So now she's more of like another student, uh, or another scholar, if you will, learning the blood rune magic. And of course, since she's not a native, since she's not born with this type of blood, she can only do certain types of spells. She can learn the more advanced stuff, but it will take way more time than it does than for the other race. Uh, Heading down here. Now here we are with boss encounters. Technically, likely to be quicker here. The nameless, ethnicity unknown, age unknown. That's all I'm going to say for it. Archdrake. The first iterations of archdragons in my type of mythology. They're a very special breed. They're only known for being around, hanging around cliffs and cave systems of very, very, very cold environments. Kind of like uh, giants and Jotunheimer. Basically, almost the same idea. This time, this breed of dragons or drakes, they carry a magical sword along with them as well, and they too stand on their hind legs and they fight with the sword like a man. And they're the only class, they're the only type of dragons that we're seeing to be heard of, and then the only ones seen with a sword as well. All right, heading down to here. Um, ooh, this is the last bit. Oh, nice. Okay. Uh, Venetatious Dilemma, or um, in other words, if you can't pronounce this, that's fine. Fungi hounds. These guys, they're the most common form of fungi infestations. They're basically abominations of people, and they were twisted and turned. You can see this into completely unrecognizable humanoid forms. They're most common amongst the fungi hounds. They are very, very aggressive and very, very vicious. But it doesn't matter what size that they are, what their height is. They can move very, very quickly. Some of them may even be able to teleport and leave a cloud of red and purple, or yes, red and purple uh, spray of infectious fungi in the air while they're moving about. So they're very, very dangerous indeed, and you do not want to mess with these guys. Now, the react structure of scene cards, but that's all I'm going to show for you. That's right, leaving you on a cliffhanger. Not because I hate you, it's just simply because, well, this is technically my stuff, and uh, you can see it later on at the end of the month. I don't think that I'm going to make a video on this like once every week or so because I want to get back to some. Excuse me. I want to get back to some photography stuff, but and it's not in authority at the moment. I have to get ready for work tomorrow. But in any case, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please tell me that this was recording the entire time. Yes, it was. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you were in the chat, I want to appreciate y'all, and I will definitely come back to this probably after. Whoa, probably after. uh, the challenge is finished, and then I'm gonna give you guys my review on it. And it is, of course, the first draft, and it's not meant to be serious, but it's something I get to talk about. I get to talk about writing, first time on my channel, and as a writer, I take this as a very important moment for my channel's sake. But in any case, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. See you around.